Let My Country Awake by Rabindranath Tagore, 1930s. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. For a Bengali like me who grew up in Kolkata, it will be like asking, when did you first hear your mom's voice? Tagore is someone that you grew up with. You hear him, you think about his ideas on life, you sing his stories, you watch the plays that he had written and those that have been adapted as film. And this particular poetry of his has stuck with me ever since my high school days. And as I've grown older, I have come to realize that it held a whole lot more than what I understood it to be growing up. He is one of those individuals that probably, if I compare him to Emerson, you would relate to the philosophy as a philosopher poet. The ideas that he had went beyond our narrow boundaries and our understanding of the world as we live it. And as we are experiencing in these past 3 weeks of self-quarantine or soft quarantine at home during the COVID epidemic. What he was talking about in the 1930s, as India was on the cusp of gaining its independence, was to not let narrow boundaries define the national identity of the country. The nationalism that you start seeing across the world, he warned us about it almost 90 years ago. And the idea of the world, of humans, of the inhabitants of the planets being responsible for each other as compared to us being responsible for exclusive groups, ethnic groups, religious groups, was what drew me to this poem. And it finds a lot more resonance today as I see my country, my adopted country, my country of birth, the countries that I have visited over the past 50 years of life, sort of edging more and more towards a completely opposite view of what this poem talks about. Let me also share my thoughts on these 2 lines that really stand out for me in the middle of the poem. Where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forth by thee into ever-widening thought and action. If you may remember, when I started the poem, the first line talked about where the mind is without fear and where knowledge is free. Where it hits my heart is being a poet and being someone who was immensely gifted when it came to the arts, whether it was visual arts, performing arts. He is still calling out for the role of the human intellect in ensuring that we don't fall into the comfort of habit. And that intellect leads you to a process where you are continuing to personify it into action. Action that leads the world to a better place than what it was when you first arrived. And when he ends into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. It could very well be not just simply my country, but let my world awake. And that's what draws me and keeps drawing me back to this poem of Thakurda or Rabindranath Tagore. Chittho jetha bhoy shunno, uchcho jetha shir, gan jetha mukto, jetha griher prachir. Purusherer kore ni shottodha, nitto jetha, tumi shorbo kormo chinta anonder neta. নিজ হস্তে নির্দয় আঘাত করি পিতা ভারতের সেই স্বর্গে করো জাগরিতা